Hello, everybody. This is Nick Totaro, Professor of Information Technologies and Computer Science, Lakeland Community College. Unless you've been living off the grid or in a cave, you probably have heard the phrase denial of service attack. It routinely makes news. A few years ago, Lakeland was even involved with a denial of service attack. But in this video, we're going to kind of break it down and really talk about it in detail. But fundamentally, what a denial of service attack is the attacker sends or floods a server with unwanted traffic. And if you flood it enough, that server gets so overwhelmed that it can't handle legitimate requests or basically shuts itself down. It gets just the utilization gets so overwhelmed. Now, if we get into our Wayback Machine and we look like 20, 25 years ago, the original denial of service attacks were fairly simple. Somebody would launch an attack against some of the big players, Amazon.com, eBay, CNN was the victim of a really bad denial of service back about 20, 25 years ago. But those early denial of service attacks were launched from individual machines. They were easily thwarted. And people were easily caught, which will tell you, I'm going to be doing a demonstration on a private network, actually on a virtual network. If I was to launch any of these attacks against a server in the wild, if I tried this against Amazon or CNN, they're going to trace me down because it's a single attack. They're going to find my IP address. They're going to hunt me down, and I am breaking the law. All right. So please don't play around with this stuff with servers on the wild. If you want to play around with it, do it in a private network that's not going to affect other people. You do it in the wild, there are laws that would be broken. Those were the early denial of service attacks. We fast forward a few years and we start getting into distributed denial of service attack. Now, the original distributed denial of service attack, the bad actors would go out and try to find weak machines, maybe your machine, maybe my machine, and compromise those, meaning they would basically take them over and we'd call them zombies. They wouldn't let you know, but they would launch the attacks from the zombies. But even back then, there was one player who had about 10 to 15,000 zombies. Now, that sounds like a lot of zombies out there, and at that time, it really was. Fast forward a few more years, and now these distributed denial of service attacks are being launched from the Internet of Things. All those little devices that we've been using on a day-to-day basis, light switches in our wall, IP cameras, washing machine, dryers, anything that can connect to the internet, Wi-Fi, smart, has the potential being compromised because the internal workings of those devices are plain and simple. They're Linux. And you're going to see in this demonstration how easy it is to generate a flood from a single device. Well, multiply that not by a couple hundred, but tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. We're going to go up to my machine and we're going to look at three computers and what they're playing in this little demonstration. So I have three computers here. The one in the lower right-hand corner, that's just my web server, right? We're not even going to look at it. That's going to be the target. It's just going to be this blank screen here. There's nothing there to really see. But up in the upper right-hand corner, we have one of the attackers. That's going to be Bob. Bob's going to initiate a denial of service attack against the web server. And then over here on the left-hand side, we have Godzilla. Now, Godzilla is going to do double duties. Godzilla is going to be the second attacker. So we have a little distributed denial of service attack, And Godzilla is also going to monitor the network traffic. So I put Godzilla into monitoring mode. So it's going to see all the network traffic. Let's start with Bob. And I'm going to start real simple. The early denial of service would just do simple ping. So if I ping the web server 10.0.1.5 and we hit it, now you'll notice something over here at Godzilla. First of all, over here at Bob, doesn't look like anything's happening. Well, something is happening because I can tell something is happening over here at Godzilla. But you'll notice something about Godzilla. Bob is sending ICM packets, but the web server is ignoring them. What I did was I went to the web server, and this is a very common practice that I took the server and says, ignore ICMP packets, right? Just don't answer them. That's a normal practice. Also, routers on the internet do not forward ICMP. So ICMP pings are not good platforms for a denial of service attack. Now you might hear something called ping of death. That's a different animal altogether, right? This is just your standard ping running ICMP, and it's actually sending out at a very slow pace, but nothing's coming back. So I'm going to break here. All right. So let's step it up a little bit. Now we're at the point where when I launch this denial of service attack, my system's going to start slowing down a lot. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed. The first denial of service attack is going to be a really simple one. It's going to be based upon the premise of the three-way handshake. Now, the three-way handshake, the TCP UDP three-way handshake, says that the client goes out to the server and says, I want to initiate conversation. The server responds back with the second part of the handshake saying, okay, I acknowledge your request. And then finally, the client goes, let's communicate. There's the three ways. One of the earliest and really one of the simplest denial of service attack is to only use those two handshakes, the first two handshakes out of three. So the client goes out there and asks for connection. The server responds, and the server just sits there. Right? But if I flood the server with a lot of those, the server not only gets overwhelmed with the amount of traffic, it's overwhelmed with all the unfulfilled requests. So let's start that. So I'm going to go to Bob, and yes, I have to take notes here. I'm going to say sudo hping3. Right? Special command -s. Now what the -s says is send that two parts of the three-way handshake, right? And now we're going to say flood. And what flood's going to do, just moving some screens around here, what flood's going to do is it's going to bombard that server as fast as possible. So it's going to hit it with a lot of packets very, very quickly and just keep hitting it with those packets, the whole thing about the flood. And then verbose mode. And let's hit port 80. That's our HTTP port, common web page port. And then I'm going to give it the victim. All right. So do the two parts of a three-way handshake, flood it, meaning send it as much information as it can. Do it to port 80. There's the given machine. Now you're going to see a big jump in network traffic as soon as after I have to log in. Not log in, but I have to verify who I am. So I'm going to say, okay. Oh, didn't type the password correctly. And away it goes. You notice immediately the flood of the network traffic that's occurring here. Gonna stop it because you'll notice right away that we have a CPU ping, almost 100% of the CPU. So I'm going to stop it right here temporarily so I can talk and do other things. All right. You notice this is what I'm looking at, why it's going by so fast right now is because Wireshark buffered all that particular information. So I brought the CPU utilization down. The other attack that I'm going to do is what's called slow walrus. And what this is, it's a slightly different attack. It's going to use the three-way handshake, right? That's good. So it's going to use all three parts of the three-way handshake. It's going to be somewhat hidden because it's almost going to look like normal traffic versus the two-way. The two-way is easily thwarted because we can say at a certain point, we know that those devices are not asking for a legitimate response. But with the slow walrus and other ones, it's going to truly try to establish the three-way handshake. But then what it's going to do is it has a potential of sending corrupted packets. Oh, that drives servers crazy because the server says, did I do something wrong? Do I need to go? It's a little resource intensive, but one of the things I like about this particular one in the demonstration, I don't use any of this technology, but what I like about this is it relies upon a Python program. So somebody who wrote it in Python. So I thought that was kind of neat just for demo. So it's going to establish the three parts. It's going to establish a socket connection. It's going to be insidious where it's not just sending simple acknowledgments. It's actually going to try to establish communication with malformed or fragmented packets. It can do it over a longer period of time. And It's written in Python. So let's take a look when this thing runs. And you can see there's the traffic. So it's going from Godzilla over to my machine. You will notice that the utilization is not that high with HPing 3, where I was just doing the flood. Wireshark just couldn't keep up with the amount of traffic. Now I'm bombarding the web server with special type of traffic. And again, we can set it up with scripting. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to relaunch the HPing 3. And wham, a lot of traffic hitting that server all at once. Now I got to be a little careful because there's a good chance with my machines, there's so much utilization going on here that it can crash these things. It's just one of those things. So you can see that there's different types of these attacks. There's something called ping of death. I'm looking at the book here. What do we have? Ping of death, teardrop. They're all different variations to get away from the IDS or the IPS systems from identifying them. One of the big things, again, is the distributed nature of this. I'm going to stop them both. All right. The distributed nature of it, but even with the distributed nature, they have to learn how, or the bad actors learn how to even go around that, because what they're trying to do again is get to the point where the server can't deal with this. So let's go up to the screen. How can we protect against this? Well, if it's a challenge. Right? It's a challenge. If it's a simple denial of service, say it's a script kiddie attack, right? Where it's coming from one or two machines, that's more dangerous for the person who is launching it because those are easily traceable. Maybe they're launching from a zombie. Again, that might be a little bit easier to stop. The other thing is they can blacklist IP addresses. You know, if it's a handful or even a couple thousand machines, they can blacklist them and say, just ignore these machines. They can blacklist entire, like almost a geofence. Don't listen to any traffic coming from other countries. When Lakeland had their attack in 2023, that's something we did. We said, we are not going to listen to traffic unless it comes from North America. Now, that was interesting for me because I was traveling outside of North America, so I had to use VPNs. So they said, we're ignoring, because we knew the distributed devices were offshore. They were not from North America. So that's something else they did. They also governed. You can govern the amount of traffic that your computer is going to deal with, so it's not trying to deal with everything all at once. So, you know, there are some of the things that they do to thwart these denial of service attacks. Again, let me stress this. This little demonstration ran the risk of basically causing my machines to shut down. That's fine, because I'm in a test environment. If I was to run this against a live server without the person's permission or out in the wild, they're going to trace it back to me because it's basically one attack. Now, you might be saying, why would anybody create these tools and then distribute them, right? Well, there is some, like anything else, there is some valid uses for these tools. In the ethical hacking world, we can use these tools as stress testers against servers. We can, if we're testing servers, we can launch attacks against our servers and see how our servers respond. And then we can make adjustments to make sure that these attacks don't work out in the wild. So there's valid uses for these. These are not just, software meant to do harm. There is software meant to do good. We can stress test our servers. We can see what our servers can handle and what they can't handle, and we can adjust accordingly. So that being said, let's go on and learn something.